This is practice quiz number 2. I'm going to show you how to graph number 1, the piecewise function, and then we're going to evaluate it for f of 2 and f of 1. So first in Desmos, you want to type in the function like it looks, but a little different. So negative 2x minus 1, then make sure you get the curly brace to put in your domain, which is x is less than or equal to 2. Then go to a new line to type the second one in. So negative x plus 4. Then make sure you get the curly brace, and then x is greater than 2. Let me make sure my volume is turned up. Okay, so then I want to put these on my paper. So I can tell that this red line would be a solid dot where it has an endpoint because it has a less than or equal to sign over here on my paper. And I can tell on Desmos it touches at 2, -5. So I'm going to plot a solid point at 2, -5. And then I see another good spot to put a point would be a y-intercept at -1. And then I'm just going to draw it going off to the left. And then the blue line I can tell has an open dot because on my paper it does not have an equal to bar underneath the greater than sign. So that'll be open. And then my endpoint looks like it's at 2, 2. So I'm going to put an open circle there. And then it touches the x-axis at 4. So I've got it graphed. Now I want to evaluate it for f of 2 and f of 1. So I'm going to move this for just a second and see if I can pick it out on my paper. So f of 2 would be to go to x equals 2 and find out what the y value is. So at x equals 2, I can see that the y value would not equal 2 because that's an open circle. So I want to go down to the solid one and pick out -5. So go with a solid dot if you have a choice. And then f of 1. So if I go to where x equals 1, because that's what that's talking about, and then go to the function, it looks like it's touching at y equals -3. You can also use Desmos, the graph you just put in there, and figure these out that way. So x equals 2. Notice touches at 2, -5. But it should be undefined up here where the blue one and the green one are touching. But where the red one and the green one are touching would make more sense. And you can look at your paper and see that it's a solid dot. And then x equals 1. Let's type that one in separately. Touches at -3. So that also is a way to figure it out. You can look on your paper, or you can still use Desmos to help with that part. Number 2 wants us to write the piecewise function that's shown in the graph. So that's where you want to use y equals mx plus b to help you. M is your slope and b is your y-intercept. You can pick either one out first. Just make sure you write them in the right order for your function. So I'm going to put f of x equals, put a big curly brace, just draw it as best you can. And then I can tell on this first line, it touches at 1, so that's the b. And then it looks like it has this positive slope because it's rising from left to right and it's going up and over 1 at a time. So my slope is just 1 over 1. So that would just be 1x plus 1. And you don't have to write the 1 in front of the x, but you can. Then I can also tell that the x values go from -4 and they stop at 1. So I'm going to put -4 and 1 and put x in the middle. They're solid, so I'm going to make sure my signs look like they would be solid. So x is greater than -4 is what that says. And x is less than or equal to 1. And it also looks like x is between those two numbers, which is important because that's what we want to represent is on our paper. So that's it for that part. Let me grab another color. For the second part, I can see this little line, if it continued, would touch at 0. So my b value would just be 0 in this case. And then the slope is going down 1 box at a time. So -1 over 1 would be my slope. So -1x plus 0. And then the domain or the x values are only from 1 to 3. So put the little one, then the bigger one. So from 1 to 3. This side is open and this side is closed. So I want to make it look like x is in the middle and I've got open and closed. So x is greater than 1 and x is less than or equal to 3. It also looks like your x is between those values, which is what you want it to look like because that's what it looks like on your paper. And then we have everything we need. To clean that up, you can write it a little bit neater, but you don't have to. You can just leave it like that. But if you did want to write it cleaner, like we don't have to put this 1, we could just say that's x plus 1, and then your domain would stay the same. And then we could say this is just negative x, and you don't have to write the 0. So on like a standardized test question, it would look more like that. But for our purposes, we can leave it either way, would be fine. All right, number 3 says given f of x is 3x minus 4 and g of x is x squared minus 3x plus 7, we want to find f of x plus g of x. So you literally take f of x, which is 3x minus 4, and add it to g of x, which is x squared minus 3x plus 7. So you're just going to combine like terms. So I see x squared doesn't go with anything else. I see 3x plus negative 3x would actually cancel each other out or add up to 0. Then negative 4 plus 7 would add up to 3. And so that is my answer to the first part. Then they want us to find g of x minus f of x. So let me change colors. So g of x is important to write first because now we're subtracting, and it does matter what order you put it when you're subtracting. Minus f of x, which was 3x minus 4. And again, we want to be careful with the minus and combine like terms again. So x squared doesn't go with anything. But now we have negative 3x minus 3x. So negative 3x minus 3x, let me put an x, is negative 6x. They don't cancel out this time. Let me write that a little better. It was negative 3x minus 3x. So we don't cancel them, they combine to give us negative 6x. And then we have 7 minus negative 4. 7 minus negative 4 turns into 7 plus 4. And so then that would just be 11. And that is it. Once you combine everything, you're done. Number 4 says f of x is 3x minus 4 and g of x is still x squared minus 3x plus 7. But this time it wants us to evaluate. So it wants us to find f of 2. So treat it like x is 2 now for f of x. So that would be 3 times 2 minus 4, which would be 6 minus 4, which is 2. Then it says find f of 1 minus g of 2. So that's a 2-step problem. So let me erase the 2 up here for the first part. And this time we want to plug in f of 1. So that's as if our x value for f of x is now going to be a 1. So that'll be 3 times 1 minus 4. But then we got to subtract. And then g of x, we want to plug in 2. So over here, I got to plug in a 2. So everywhere x is, I need to put a 2. And it's much safer to put that x in parentheses. So you always treat it properly with your calculator. So 2 squared minus 3 times 2 plus 7 is g of 2. And then you just need to clean all that up either by hand or with your calculator. So 3 times 1 is 3, minus 4 gives me negative 1. And then minus, let's see, we would get 2 squared is 4, minus 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 7. So 4 minus 6 would give us negative 2 plus 7. All right, so now I have negative 1 minus negative 2 plus 7 is 5. And negative 1 minus 5 would give me negative 6. So your final answer to those problems are going to just be a number. But you get there eventually, following all those steps. Number 5 says given f of x is 3x minus 4 and g of x is 2x plus 1, find f of g of x. And so on this one, you want to plug in one function into the other. So I'm going to plug in g of x for the x value in f of x. So I'm going to substitute 2x minus 1 for the x in f of x. So I'm going to put 3, and then in place of x, I'm going to put 2x plus 1, because that's my g of x that I'm plugging in, minus 4. And from there, you just have to distribute and clean it up. So 3 times 2x plus 1 gives me 6x plus 3. And then the minus 4 is still there. So then I get 6x minus 1 overall. And then for the last part, I've got to plug in g of f of 2. So start with f of 2. Just that part by itself, I think, is easier to start with. where go to F and plug in x equals 2 and figure out that part first. So f of 2 would equal 3 times 2 minus 4, which is 6 minus 4, which is 2. And now you're just going to figure out what is g of 2, because f of 2 is equal to 2. So g of 2 is easier to think about, I believe, than the whole thing all together. And that would just be 2 times 2 plus 1, which is 5. And that is your final answer, is that last number that you end up with. And then that would be it.